All right, guys, it is another urgent real-time Bitcoin forecast time, and everything is possibly bearish. Everything looks like it may. It's not confirmed yet, so I'm giving you it's looking more and more bearish by the moment. I'll tell you what I'm looking at. I'm going to show you. This is the stock market. This is stock market futures, which is doing this right now. You see, we just hit the blue line, top of the gray box, and we retested it and we just dumped really, really hard and fast. So that's not a good sign. This is Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin, and what Bitcoin is doing right here, we are in a triangle, as you can see, but we're on the bottom side of this triangle. And we actually retested the bottom of that triangle, as you can see right there. That is a triangle retest where you see that little wick hitting the bottom side of that green line. We retested, and now we're kind of just meandering. So we're going to zoom into here to see what's going to happen, or we're going to zoom right into this middle section and see whether we can get some early warning signs as to what's going to happen. And even if we don't zoom in, I can show you this chart. Looks like just higher lows, higher highs over and over again. We had a double three drive. When you have a double three drive going upwards, it's almost guaranteed not to keep pumping. So that's the short summary. So let's dive into each chart a little more closely. This is Ethereum, and Ethereum is Ethereum looks like it wanted to print an inverse head and shoulders. You see, this I should have extended this upper line here to here. If I had extended that upper line up to where my index finger is, pretty soon artificial intelligence is going to be able to like read my fingerprint and then trace me all over the world. This absolutely sucks, this world we live in. And it's not it doesn't suck for just the people that do illegal stuff. It sucks for anybody that wants freedom, because anybody can be accused of doing something illegal, and then all of a sudden you just committed suicide by putting 2 bullets in your head. That's the world we live in. Anyway, let's analyze this too at the same time. But what we really should do, though, is start with this chart, the S&P 500 futures chart, because that dictates what all these other guys are going to do. So let's dive into here by zooming. I'm going to zoom out here and try and get away from this glare. Let's zoom out a little bit at a time to see where we are in the big picture. Okay, I'm starting to see a channel develop. You see this channel developing here? It could be, it's kind of like, I can't get my fingers out of the way. Maybe I should use like, do I have a, yes, I do have a boom. Okay, so this shows us where this gray area is a gap on the S&P 500. And as you can see, we have, oh man, we just hit the bottom now. I'm going to try and do this real quick before this thing breaks out of the gray box and goes underneath the gray box, because that would be really, really bad, because then Bitcoin and everything would crash. But hopefully that doesn't happen before I finish this video and you get to watch it. So this downward channel is normally bullish. Okay, this downward channel is normally bullish, plus the fact that we have this. We have an inverse head and shoulders developing on the diagonal. This is, you know, most inverse head and shoulders are diagonal like this. Let me change the neckline for you. A little bit better there. Here. So we should have pumped, but we did. We did pump, and when we pumped, we broke out here, and then we immediately got rejected, and now we're retesting the bottom. That is bad. That's really bad news, especially since Evergrande is having a ton of problems right now. What's wrong with Evergrande? Well, if Chinese companies go bankrupt, they can't pay American companies that they buy hardware from. They can't pay Russian companies that they buy soil from or parts from or whatever. And then the whole world goes into a crash. And to make money during a crash, what you have to do is get a bunch of people sick so that they go to the hospital. And when they go to the hospital, they buy drugs and they pay hospitals. And you destroy property. And who's going to destroy property for you except the people that... anyway, I'm not going to go into that. So let's zoom out a little farther. So you have to get people sick to stimulate insurance company money, and you have to destroy property to lower property prices so that you can buy it on the cheap, so that the super rich people can take, I'm talking the elites, the people that are actual monarchs, and the Rothschilds and all those guys. Yeah, this has been a long time coming. But see, this should have been bullish, but it's not. And I'm going to show you the origin of this gray box down here, this gray box. Let me show you the origin, because that's necessary for you to understand. There it is. You can't see it because my head. Let me move my head. I think that should help. Okay. You see that? This gray box comes from, here we go. Can you see that well enough? That gray box is an extension of, let me stretch this out here. This gap right in here. See this gap on the S&P 500? This particular gap is exactly where we are currently in turmoil. And if we can't break out of this gap soon, we're going to go underneath this gray box. And going under the gap would be really, really bad, because that creates an island top. This would be an island top. Not Ireland, island. And to show you this island top a little bit more clearly, I'm going to zoom out even farther to show you what would happen is that this entire thing here, I'm going to move my noggin, this entire thing here would be just a separate island, which would be really, really bad for here. Here's the separate island here, as you can see, doop, like that. This would be really, really bad. That would point to all markets crashing again, going down here. But my head keeps getting in the way. Do you even need my head? I mean, without my head, are as many of you guys actually going to watch this? It would point to the base of, when would we go back to? We would go back to about December 2022. We'd go back to October 2022 prices. And I hate this tool because you can't leave it without hitting the cursor again. There we go. We would go right back to right around these prices again. And it looks like that's exactly what we're doing. We would head back to these prices. Man, here. I'll move this price marker for you so you can have it as a reference right around here. Right around this price for the S&P 500. 3686. 3686. How come you're not focusing? Just focus, dude. Bought the world's best camera to do this with. Anyway, that's what would happen if we can't break out of this. And since it's Friday, it doesn't look good. Now, here's the thing. Let's talk about what happens traditionally. Traditionally, when the first half of September is bad, the second half of September is bad, but the second half of September is over now. October generally bounces back. October does generally bounce back. So what could happen is, man, let me go right back into this and tell you what could happen, including a fake out. This gray area here, we could be pulling this routine, move my noggin. We could be pulling this routine here and then close futures and close all the markets and leave the market uncertain just in this gray box. We could just leave this market, this price action in the gray box in the gap. If that happens, then next week should be bullish. Next week should be bullish. If today, when the market opens and before the market closes, this thing just dumps underneath this lowest wick, chances are it's not going to be bullish next month, which is only a couple days away. Did you get that? If we go underneath this point, which we haven't yet, but it looks like we're trying to, we wicked underneath the gray box again. Now we're back into the gray box. If we go under the gray box and if we go under the lowest low, chances are we're going to have a very bearish end of the year. This entire end of the year is going to be bad, especially since Evergrande is just collapsing and taking all sorts of American creditors and global creditors with it. Is that what will happen? I'm going to need to tell you what's actually going to happen when we get confirmation, and that's probably going to happen in a couple hours, maybe 10 or 12 hours from now. And the first people to know will be on my Twitter, OTC_Bitcoin. OTC_Bitcoin on my Twitter. Now, regardless of what happens, let's look at crypto to see. And since I mentioned Evergrande, and since I mentioned statistically, if the first half of September is bad, then the second half of September is bad. But October generally is better. And that's exactly what's following. And it looks bearish right now, but it just could be waiting for October volume. So, but I mean, this video would be worthless if I didn't give you a, hey, there's a 93% chance we're going to go. So right now I'm telling you, I have no idea whether we're going to go up or down because we don't have clarity yet on this particular move. However, if the stock market didn't change, if the stock market didn't do anything and all that, what about crypto? For instance, what would happen to crypto over the weekend when the stock markets are closed? Now that's a question I can address because we've got crypto right here. This is Bitcoin, and this is all of the coins, and this is Ethereum. Man, I'll tell you this much. The short story, let's analyze this. We've talked about Western, actually global stock markets in September and what happens in October. But right now, do you know what this is right now? This is the Mid-Autumn Festival. It's something like the 15th day of the lunar month of every 8th lunar month of the year. Whatever that means. And that date varies because the Chinese calendar is different from the Western calendar. And that date this year is September. It's too small again. September 29th, which is today. But what's going to happen? Every single time there is a huge holiday and this Midsummer Night Autumn Festival, sounds Shakespearean. Every time that happens, there's a huge change in volume. Literally a huge change in volume because it's one of the biggest holidays of the year. It's just as big as New Year's, and it's just as big as it's even bigger than Christmas in Asia. It's New Year's in this particular festival is the biggest in the two biggest of the year. So volume changes, and when volume changes, price moves. What's price going to do? Well, it's kind of smart to figure out what price has done, isn't it? So all these other blue lines, I'll move my head over here now. All these other blue lines are the other midsummer festivals, Chinese midsummer festivals. Can you kind of see a pattern? Why not zoom into it? What's going to happen next? We might get a little bit of a hint from what happened in the past. Here, let's take a look at this particular last year's Chinese midsummer festival, and this is what happened. We had a pump just the day before the Midsummer Festival, and then slightly creeping up, and then we had an even bigger dump, and then we had an even bigger dump after the Midsummer Festival. Why is that? Generally speaking, Chinese people, Asian people will sell crypto, they'll sell everything to give their parents and give their children gifts. So it's a big profit-taking moment, even though there's not much profit to take right now. We have had a couple scam wicks that pumped up. So it'd be reasonable to expect that the Chinese people, the Koreans, and I don't know about the Japanese, but at least the Chinese and the Koreans will take profit and sell to buy gifts like Christmas gifts. Now, what about the year before? This is just 1 year. What happened to the year before that? The year before that was October 21st, 2021, Thursday. What happened then? Well, kind of the same thing. We had bullish, not kind of the same thing. We had all-time high. This is literally when we hit this price. $69,000, price label, this, bam. This is when we hit $69,000 just after the Autumn Festival. So if everyone had taken some profits and sold some Bitcoin to buy gifts, and then afterwards price pumped even higher, and then they FOMO'd and bought back in, they would have been dumped on really, really hard. So two really bearish price actions for the midsummer festivals. Let's look at the third one. Third one's really bullish, but is it bullish? Let's take a look. If we zoom into this, what has actually happened, what date is that? This is October 1st, 2020. October 1st, 2020, we're in the middle of a triangle, and we actually had a nice little dump. You see that? Sure, we had this huge pump afterwards, but if you zoom into what happened during that week was actually kind of bearish. We went down, we actually had a nice meaty dump inside that triangle on the blue line. So right before the blue line happened, we had a meaty dump, which is what it looks like wants to happen here. This channel, whenever you see rising channels like this with 6 or more higher highs, this is the actual real major secret here for you guys. Do something like this. This is not bullish. Count the higher highs. Count the number of higher highs. You have, coming from the neckline, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When you have more than 6 higher highs, it's very, very rarely bullish. Sometimes what you can do is get a triangle here. You can get some consolidation here. We should dump right away. If we don't dump right away and we get a bear trap wick underneath this black line, then we are going to pull one of those rare consolidations here. Go zigzag, zigzag. Isn't it taking kind of a long time to dump? Yeah, never mind. It'll dump. Zigzag, zigzag. Pump is what normally happens. But you got to see a bunch of consolidation here. Instead, what you should see in most cases is faster accelerating dumping that happens, which is what it looks like will happen here. You want to know what it looks like? I'll show you what it looks like. See this? We had a double top here. Double top drips, and then you see how fast this candle moved? It should have continued. The moment this thing goes all the way back up, you get one more chance. You get one more chance to close out. If you're short here, one more chance to close out in profit or break even. You normally always do have a second chance, but you got to sit there and get that timing exactly perfect, or just order close, place an order, because you get a second chance to close here before it goes up. The reason why we know this is going to go up is because we should have dumped right here within 3 candles. Within 3, well, I'm not going to give you more specifics than that, but within 3 candles, if we don't dump, we're going to go reverse. So that's what consolidation looks like. And we are back up inside this gray box. So I think what we're going to do is play tag chase for this gray box for the rest of the day, unless something else happens, like I said. And I won't know until a couple hours from now when we get confirmation. Now this is Bitcoin. Now let's take a look at Bitcoin and see how that differs from total. Okay, let's zoom right back into this whole area here, shall we? Let's do that and see what the coin is doing. This is 12 hours, so let's go 4 hours, 2 hours, and then zoom in even more, 30 minutes. Come on, zoom in. Okay, this entire action. You see what's happening here? You don't? Well, I will show you anyway. So here's that big green triangle I told you we were underneath, that we retested and we got rejected. You see this rejection here? That's a rejection. We're not going to be allowed to go back into this green triangle here, is what this particular rejection means. So what's happening now? Are we going to get a second chance, and are we bullish? Are we going to pump? That is answered by these new purple lines I just drew. How is that answered by these new purple lines? Well, take a look at what's happening. Purple lines show an almost inverse head and shoulders. Look at that. Perfect touch here, perfect touch here, perfect touch here, almost perfect inverse head and shoulders. Right shoulder, big head. All we need is a left shoulder head. All we need is the right shoulder. All we need is another arch right in here. And we got 1, 2, 3 triangles, 3 pent-up spaces that have upward pressure. Let's look at the bottom side though. Bottom side, we have one big head. We have a bunch of tiny little shoulders. And we've actually had this thing is a head and shoulders. One shoulder here, head here, another shoulder, and then we had a breaker shoulder right in here. And yes, that created a dump. But if you zoom out, this dump created a rejection, so we can play back in this triangle again. So rejections and invalidations, what they mainly are am I going to be able to stay within that structure, within that trend. And this trend is a triangle. We broke underneath the triangle trend and we said, no, we're going to stay right back in the triangle trend. So next, what should happen is, since we have two just about ideal shoulder and a head, we should actually touch this top purple line and then pump up. But are we going to have a dip first? It's quite possible. Why? Because after we rejected this particular rejection on the bottom side of this triangle, we never retested. And this head is really too tiny. Look at this. Let me draw this in for you. If we pump right away, move my head again. If we pump right away, this is what this inverse head and shoulders would look like. And it's really just kind of, the proportions aren't right. This shoulder looks way too small. What I would like to see, actually not like to see, but what would be a more acceptable shoulder would be something that looks like, oops, this, or maybe even this. Or no, let's not even do that. Let's say something like this. This would be a much more reasonable looking right shoulder, as opposed to, look at the difference, A or B, tiny. A, well balanced. B, tiny. You see what I'm saying? So if you don't, this is normally the way TA works. Now I'm looking at my screens just to make sure that I don't have to quit this broadcast and just do another trade. This is normally the way TA works. Whether you're in a channel, whether you're in a triangle, or whether you're in a wedge, or whatever shape you're in, you go bounce between the highs and lows. You go bounce between the outer trend lines. Like I said, if it's a channel, you just bounce within the channel. If it's a triangle, you bounce within the triangle. And then what you do is you break out, and then you either reject or you retest. If you reject, then you will generally retest. It's very rare that you get a breakdown or a break up without a retest. And in this case, we had a break in this rejection, broke back into the triangle, and never retested. So until you break out back out on the other side of the triangle. Does that make sense? So here it is. And I'm going to explain this to you this way. Normally, when you have a triangle and you're doing one of these things, boof, 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 and if you break out of a triangle, normally what you do is retest the trend line that you broke out of, and then you continue dumping. In this particular case, we got a rejection. We didn't get a retest. So what ended up happening here is that this particular baby went up, and then now is playing around here. In this case, what we do is we tend to retest the same line, but the top side. We retest once, and then poof, is what normally happens. So here we should get some kind of, we're currently missing the retest, and then poof, is what usually happens and looks like might happen now, unless, like I said, yeah, see, this entire time I've been talking to you, we're still, man, I can't get rid of that glare. Let me move my head. This entire time I've been talking to you, we're still on the downside of this gray box, which is that gap. So it's not bullish, guys. It's just not bullish. I would start some small shorts. In fact, that's what I'm going to do. Follow me on OTC_Bitcoin. And for real time, all the time, 24 hours a day, several alerts per day, several high leverage trades per day, bitcoin-signals.org. Take 70% off. Don't tell anybody. Just pay 70% less than what's on the website, and the admin will let you in. I got to do a short right now.